What's up, Oiler Nation? I'm Brandon Emsweller with your UFTV Sports, and today UFTV will be starting a new segment where I will be sitting down with a different coach every week to discuss what is going on while in season and recapping games that happened the previous week. Our first coach for our first ever Coach's Corner is head coach of the Lady Oilers, Jim Weedy. Thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Now, Coach, let's look back to what happened last week where you guys were playing Ashland, and kind of during that game, it was very close in that first half, and it was 37-37 before half, and then Ashland hits that three-point buzzer beater going into halftime, and kind of after that, Ashland started inching away from the game, and their offense really picked up in that second. What was the main cause of that happening? What did you need to tell your players in that second half to maybe stop them from getting some really good offensive drives?
Well, Ashland's one of the best offensive teams in the league, and I think they're the best passing team in the league. And this year they've got a really nice combination of young post players inside and very good three-point shooters on the perimeter. And during that little stretch early in the second half, we went a little cold. Missed some shots, 3 or 4 possessions in a row where we didn't score. They came down, hit some shots, and I believe it was 51-45 at about the 15-30 mark. And then from that point on, they went on a 16-5 run. You know, one of the things that's plagued us this year is when we don't hit shots, we're not as active defensively. We're not able to stop the bleeding or stop the momentum. We've been very inconsistent this year. There's a number of games that we lost because of that. That's something that's a work in progress. You know, we still have 10 games left, but until we find a way to fix that, it could sneak up on us again. Now, we've had a couple games like Lake Erie over this past weekend in Ohio Dominican where we got down and we were able to come back. But when you give a team like Ashland a 17-point lead, it's going to be really challenging for you to come back and win that.
And whenever you guys play Ashland, it's always a good game.
Yeah.
It's always a good game to listen to or to watch because you know it's going to be a competition. And this game was definitely a competition. But I look back at some of the stats, and mainly you guys were pretty good in all categories. The thing that kind of popped out to me was Ashland actually had 41 rebounds, and you guys only had 27. And also their second chance points with 13, and I think you guys finished with 3. So, how much was that a difference maker for this game? Because I think rebounds were pretty key in this one.
Yeah, I think defense and rebounding, it's the old cliche. You
Yeah.
win championships with that. If you look at the stat sheet, the team that gets the most rebounds or the team that gets to the free throw line the most generally wins the game. Again, they're inside players. I thought going into the game, the difference would be the post players. And I thought that we had an advantage offensively and defensively in that category. But as it turned out, Ashland's young post players dominated us offensively, and we weren't able to score. And you give somebody 13 second chance opportunities and you get 41 rebounds to 20-something, again, you're putting yourself in a really difficult position. And we had some of our core group. We have 8, what I would consider our top 8 players. And I don't think our top 8 players played as well as Ashland's top 8 players. And I think that was a big difference in the game.
And also, since we're going to be talking about the offensive side when Ashland really kicked it off in that second. You guys shot around the 42%, where Ashland actually was shooting around 53. So, what did you have to tell your players, during the game to get some type of offensive going to get back into it?
Well, we run a variety of different things, and I thought Ashland did a really nice job of taking away Carly Boner, who had been extremely hot from the perimeter.
Yeah.
So we became one-dimensional.
Yes.
And when you rely on the three-point shot too much, it's hit or miss.
Yes.
And in that particular game, because they're taking away our best three-point shooter, now you're relying on other players to step up and make shots. Now, we have plenty of kids that can do that, but Ashland's one of the better defensive teams in the league, and the fact that we couldn't establish an inside game and get some easy points, get to the free throw line a little bit more, I think hurt us. But the bottom line was we didn't defend well enough. And that, again, has been something that's kind of hurt us this year, and it's generally fueled by the lack of offense. This team is very offensive driven.
Yes.
When we're on and we're scoring and everybody's rolling, the defensive intensity and energy picks up. When we're not, we can't get ourselves out of that funk, and we can't get that key stop or two that we really need to kind of change the momentum.
And I completely agree with you on that one, Coach. But now let's make the transition with where you guys played Lake Erie on Saturday. And it kind of was coming to be the same kind of story that happened against Ashland. You're down 21-5. and then all of a sudden you come back on a 19-7 run, and you're going to win this game. What did you? I mean, it happened in a 10-minute period with a 19-7 run in that first. What did you have to tell your players to make that happen?
I asked them nicely if they would play better, play a little harder. No, we just Lake Erie makes you play ugly. They press, they run and jump. There's no method to the madness, but they play extremely hard. And if you're soft with the basketball, if you pick up your dribble quickly, they're on top of you and they take away the next pass. And I thought we were very rattled early on.
Yes.
We kicked the ball all over the place. They hit shots early on, which they generally don't do. They're not a great offensive team if you look at their stats. And it just got to a point where once we settled down a little bit, we started taking care of the ball a little bit better. We started to hit a few shots, and then we kind of got in a rhythm, and we were fortunate to cut it to, I believe, 4 at halftime. And then the second half, it was totally different. From the 10-minute mark, I believe, of the first half, throughout the rest of the game, we held them to 37 points. So the defensive intensity picked up. We changed to a man-to-man defense, which we very rarely play man-to-man. And we extended the floor and we pressed a little bit more, which we hadn't done a lot in recent games. And I think that was the biggest difference.
And I think the biggest thing out of this game was one player, Carly Boner. She knocked down 5 of 10 3-pointers. And, how has she changed from freshman year? Because I remember last year she had some issues getting that confidence behind the arc. And this year she's really knocking them down. And I noticed whenever I was in the Kaler Center, she would show up to practice early every single time, and she would work on her jump shot, and then she would also work on her 3-pointers. How has she transitioned this year for her sophomore year?
I think the biggest thing is, early on as a freshman, you're not familiar with the speed of the game, the defenders, how quickly they can recover out to you as a shooter. And I think early on, Carly was just rushing her shot. I don't think she knew she had more time than what she did. And I think she was in such a hurry to get rid of it. Her dad works with her quite a bit, and he's the one that really taught her how to shoot. I think this year she's just more comfortable in being a collegiate player, understanding the players in the league defensively, how teams are going to defend her. We run a lot of stuff for her to get her good looks. Here's a kid, and I'm not sure if a lot of people know this, but Carly is the all-time record holder in the state of Ohio for boys and girls for 3-pointers made in a career. And she also holds the state record for girls for the number of threes in one season. I believe it's 110. You give her an inch, and she's going to knock it down. And she's got incredible range. And she hit a shot earlier in the year against Grand Valley, which was out past the volleyball kill line. And I'd seen her do that a lot in high school, but I'd never seen her do that in the collegiate game.
And it's just not her. I think the whole team this year, I'm noticing, is really gelling very well. And they're just facilitating the ball better. They're going for those opportunities. When they have the open opportunity, they're going to take that shot. I'm just noticing that more with your team this season. And I've told them this, in 25-plus years of coaching women's college basketball, it is hands down my favorite team from the standpoint that it's chemistry-wise, it's the best team I've ever coached. Yeah.
They get along extremely well. They spend a lot of time together off the court. The young players were embraced by the upperclassmen the first day of summer school. And I think on the women's side in particular, chemistry is huge.
Oh, yeah.
And this team has that.
Yeah.
Now, I wish we would be a little bit better defensively. I wish we would be a little bit tougher at times. But when it comes to chemistry and personalities, this team is the best I've ever coached.
And I've noticed that too. Whenever I'm around the players, sometimes whenever I'm at the rec center, it's just they seem like they are happy to be around each other, basically 24/7.
Yep.
So no, I definitely have noticed that this season. I think this season is definitely a very special one so far because right now you guys are 10-6, 6-6 in GLIAC play, and how does your team build on to make it to tournament play coming into that March? What do they have to build on?
Well, it's a tough stretch right now. I mean, I think we've put ourselves in a little bit of a hole with some of the games that we let get away earlier in the year. But defensively, it comes back to defense. We worked on some things yesterday that we're going to tweak with our zone. Play maybe a little bit more man-to-man. This team does not like to press, so that's one of the reasons why we haven't pressed as much this year. And if they don't buy into it, it's kind of pointless to try to pound it home. If we can become a little bit more consistent on the defensive end and stay fairly close rebounding-wise, because we're not a great rebounding team, but we've had a number of games this year where we have out-rebounded our opponents. But if we don't give up a ton of second-chance opportunities, we generally get to the free throw line more than our opponent does. But it's that defensive consistency. If we get a little more solid the last 10 games in that area, then we're going to be pretty good, because our offense is generally there night in and night out.
And then that leads on to, this week, you're away at Walsh on Thursday, and they're 13-3 right now. And then we are coming back home, Croy Gymnasium, against a 7-9 Malone team, which Walsh is a very difficult team to go up against up in Canton. So, you're going to definitely have to prepare for that one. How are you going to have to prepare?
Well, it was a shootout last year up there. I think it was 86-83.
Yeah.
57-51, I think at our place we beat them. But we're very similar in a lot of ways. When you look at the stats, their field goal percentage, three-point percentage, the categories are very, very similar. They got a lot of young kids that have stepped up and played very well for them. A good mix of veterans. Funderburg, their three-point shooter, is a tough matchup, so you got to know where she's at on the floor. Again, it's going to come back to our ability to defend. They're a better rebounding team than us on paper. It can't be a shootout. I just really don't think that if we get into an upper 70s or an 80-point game, I think that puts us in a tough spot. If we can keep it in the 60s or lower, I think that's advantageous to us. With Malone on Saturday, they've had two key injuries. Their two top guards were both out with knee injuries, and that's really set them back a little bit. So with graduation and that, they're not having the type of year that they had last year, but they're still always a tough matchup, and Jason does a great job with them.
It's always those two Canton teams that I'm always worried about whenever we go up against them. They always give us a fight, even though it doesn't matter what their record is. It's always they're going to give us some kind of, nudge to make us work at it. And definitely got Walsh, big offensive team, and Malone, they can get their defense going sometimes.
Yeah, they're a better defensive team probably than Walsh. Walsh is a much better offensive team than they are. So two contrasting styles. Malone runs more of a motion. Walsh runs more of a dribble drive type offense, put the ball on the floor and attack. So it'll be a tough matchup for us in both of those games.
Coach, I greatly appreciate you doing the first ever Coach's Corner. And that's going to do it for me. I'm Brandon Emsweller. And also make sure you guys head out to Croy Gymnasium on Saturday to watch the Lady Oilers play Malone, and also Thursday, tune in to 88.3 WLFC, where Tim and Jason will have it for you for the Walsh game. I believe that game's going to be around 5:30 for you guys. And for UFTV Sports, I'm Brandon Emsweller.